Hello, this is wmpyr here with another martial arts discussion. So the topic for today is a very famous quote by none other than the legendary Bruce Lee. And the quote went something like, take what is useful, discard what is not, right? And I'm sorry, I don't know what the original quote exactly is because I don't have the Tao of Jeet Kune Do with me. Um, and he's been quoted so many times. Like I just looked it up on online just to try to make sure I got the quote right, and there were so many different variations. It was written so many different ways. I couldn't tell which one was truly the original. So, but that's the gist. That's the general quote. That's one that I think you guys have all heard it, right? So I want to talk about that. Let's examine what does this mean, so let's explore it. Okay, so uh take what is useful, discard what is not, right? Let's go back in a time machine to back when martial arts was at the time. And this was at the time when he was over here in the US, right? And he had seen and lived uh, in the US. And so he knew that at the time the Kung Fu and the Chinese martial arts was not as available as it is today here in North America. And so then that means a lot of the Eastern martial arts that came to the US were probably from Japan. And if you look at a lot of the training that was offered probably at the time, and also like how did the martial arts come from Japan to the US? And probably from, like things like World War II and stuff like that. A lot of military people brought it over here to the US. So this means, and even in Japan, the way that it was taught was very militaristic. Why? Because it's organized, and it's a great way to teach mass is to do it military style. It wasn't necessarily one-on-one, private, let's, work on you, rather than more like, okay, we have, 50 people line up, you all line up, we're going to do the forms. That's a much easier way to pass it on to a large number of people. So maybe the Okinawan style of karate was much more, one-on-one type or smaller private group settings to pass on the art. And Shotokan and Kyokushin and the later karate styles were more like maybe more militaristic. So what I'm trying to say is that coming from that kind of I'm only assuming, okay, so I don't know, this is a discussion, right? So if karate was passed, a lot of the Japanese arts were taught that way, militaristic fashion, and that was brought to the US because soldiers brought it over here, American soldiers. And so they learned it that way, and they're teaching it that way too over here in the US. You could imagine that it was pretty much like you don't question your teacher. They teach it, you follow it. Military doesn't work by you questioning them. They tell you what to do, you do it, right? They say jump, you say how high, right? That kind of thing. So, for Bruce Lee to say, take what is useful, discard what is not, is basically saying question. Question the teacher, question the technique, question the strategy, question the art. He's saying question it, don't just be a robot and take it in and just do it. So, that probably worked very well here in the US. I don't know in Asia how well that mentality works. And even in Japan today, I don't think he's necessarily famous for that. In Japan, obviously, all over the world, he's respected and famous, and he's a legend, right? But here in the U.S., maybe it really extra clicked over here because this is very individualistic, and in Asia, it's more, you conform a lot more over there, and here in North America, it's just the personality of here to be a lot more individualistic, and this kind of mentality really works well. So, and then also with, like, I don't know, just being rebellious and stuff, you could imagine that a lot of people, you know, heard Bruce Lee's teachings, and they were like, man, that I dig that, you know, and so I can see why it was appealing for a lot of people, and also myself when I was learning martial arts and I read the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and it said stuff like that in there. It was just like, man, this really works for me. This really clicks. So here I am, allowed to. He's saying it's totally cool to go study from one style, and like, okay, I'm gonna learn the leg kicks from Muay Thai kickboxing, and I'm gonna learn the toe kicks from Savat, and I'm gonna learn the trapping from Wing Chun, and I'm gonna learn the wrestling from freestyle wrestling. You know, he's saying, you know, put them all together like this, and do that, you know. And I was like, that's very appealing, you know, rather than be stuck in one style and whatnot. So, you know, it was very hip, it was very cool, you know, it made sense and whatnot. So the next part that I kind of want to address is, you know, when he said, you know, take what is useful and discard what is not, you know, was he really talking about? So if you accept what he's saying there, then that basically, you'd think that it means there are techniques that work and there are techniques that don't work. There are styles that work, there are styles that don't work. You know, what does that mean? That's still pretty vague. What do we mean by work and doesn't work? Does he mean that, you know, some styles are legit, that it's going to work in a street fight no matter who trains it, and then there's other styles that if you learn this style, you're going to get killed in a street fight no matter who trains it, you know, if you follow that style? And I don't think that's what he meant. A lot of people, I think that, and they believe in that, but I really don't think that's what he meant. At least later on, maybe in the beginning he felt that way, but as he trained with many world-class martial artists, I think his viewpoint changed. And in his writings, you could see it's changed. Like in the beginning, he's criticizing, you know, karate-style punches. In Enter the Dragon, he does karate-style punches. You know, there's a part where O'Hara, what's his face? Bob Wall comes in to get Bruce Lee, and you know, Bruce Lee tells him, leave me alone, outside or something like that, right? And then he goes into a punch. It's like he got pretty upset just seeing that guy, because he knows that dude killed his sister or something. So he throws, like, you know, four or five punches in a matter of, you know, half a second or something. Yeah, you look at that, those are this kind of punches, you know. So I don't think, once again, that that's what he meant, you know. So then the other interpretation is, did he mean what works for you? You know, because we all have different body types. So, you know, if you're like short and stocky, then Taekwondo's not going to work for you. Maybe wrestling, grappling style would work much better for you. If you're long, then maybe, you know, more like the striking arts is going to be better suited for you. You know, long and thin, you know, you're going to have more cardio, you know, just stuff like that. So take what works for you and discard what doesn't work for you. Is that what he meant? You know? And honestly, I kind of don't think so either, because then that means that certain martial arts styles was designed that way. It was designed for certain types of people. And, you know, I kind of feel like, well, the first argument, let me go back to the first argument of there's certain styles that work and there's certain styles that don't work, okay? I don't believe in that. I believe that any style has the possibility to work, and any style has the possibility to fail. And the same thing with techniques. It's just a tool. There's no guarantee. So people that are saying this works, this doesn't work, you're looking for a guarantee, and that just doesn't exist. So I think you're on a fool's quest. So, I'd say get away from that thinking. That's the way that I see it. And it's what you make of it. And in Way of the Dragon, Bruce Lee says something like that, where the short, fatter guy that was there at the restaurant, he was like, "Oh, it's foreign," because they're all training in karate. And he's like, "That's foreign. My thing is Chinese boxing." And then Bruce Lee says to him, he says to the guy, he says, "Foreign or not, you know." And I don't remember the actual quote, but I haven't seen the movie in so long. He says something like, "Foreign or not, you should embrace it and train hard in it, put everything you got into it, and then it's going to serve you well," type of thing. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It's you putting effort into it. See, so that he says that in Way of the Dragon, and that's later on in his years. It's not Enter the Dragon later, but it was later on when he became a director. He directed that movie. So anyway, I kind of feel like so style works or doesn't work. I don't think that's what he was talking about. And then so the next one is take what works for you and discard what doesn't work for you. I don't think that's what he was talking about either, because if you say that, then that means that certain martial arts was designed for certain people only. And I kind of don't think so. Martial arts was designed for anybody and just about anybody and everybody. So your expression of Taekwondo might be different from my expression of Taekwondo, So it's like music, classical music or whatever. You go train in it, and it's art. That's why it's martial arts. So the way you learn, you go under and you study classical music, and then you may use classical music to blend it with rock and roll. Whereas I may use classical music to design a score for a movie. So it's different ways to express that. And I feel that's what traditional martial arts is and was, even to this day. So it's for everybody, So the way that you do Wing Chun may be totally different from the way I do Wing Chun. And there's nothing wrong with that, Because at first, in the beginning levels, no, you got to learn the ABCs. So when you learn the ABCs, it pretty much everybody should be doing it the same way. It should look the same way. But then you get to more advanced levels, it shouldn't. It's different. And then within Wing Chun, it's broad enough that it offers a lot, So even though it's just Wing Chun right here, there might be someone who specializes in the staff. They become very, very good with the staff. Another dude's very good with the butterfly swords. Another dude's better with empty hand. And within the empty hand, he has KO power, or he's explosive and he's super fast. That's more like Bruce Lee. Or there's another guy that he's just a really good teacher. He's very analytical. He's more like a coach. So there's different expressions. You know what I mean? So I don't think that he meant certain styles are for certain people only. I really don't think so. So I think that's another common misinterpretation there. The only thing where I can think where that kind of holds consistent is when we talk about combat sports. When we talk about combat sports, if you've been a couch potato all your life, and you're not very athletic, and you maybe like me, like I was very sick when I was a kid, there's no way that when I first started martial arts that I could do a combat sport. Actually, I did. My very first experience was judo in PE. So because it was PE in Japan, it was part of it's not as serious as going to a commercial judo school. So even there, I couldn't hack it. And it almost made me quit martial arts completely because I got annihilated in class. And as I was, getting choked out and I could only see black at that point, I remember being extremely disappointed in martial arts. And I thought martial arts is supposed to be the weak able to defend themselves or defeat the strong. And here I'm experiencing the exact opposite. The strong beats up on the weak, and I'm getting crushed and I'm getting destroyed. So, I was kind of like, then this is a sport. And it is a sport, So I was very, very disappointed and, almost gave up on martial arts. Thankfully, moved to the U.S. and that opened doors for me, and it clicked for me. I mean, you might think, well, you were in Japan, bro. That's, a lot of martial arts came from there. Why didn't you, but it didn't work out for me there, Came to the U.S. This is where it clicked for me, actually. And I still have plenty of respect for Japan and everything. And when I did go back, I did experience a lot of beautiful martial arts there too. But my first experience there was a terrible one, So combat sports, like I said, that's a little bit different. I kind of feel like that's not for everybody, But anyway, going back to the subject. So what did Bruce Lee mean when he was talking about, take what is useful, discard what is not? So I'm trying to argue that the first two most common reasons are wrong, So what the heck did he mean? Take what is useful, discard what is not. And I feel like what he meant was that whatever clicks for you, you go with it. Whatever you feel that is useful for you, and that doesn't mean that the style that you feel is worthless or that it would never work for you. Maybe under a different teacher, it would work great for you, But in this particular moment, maybe you just don't like it. You don't like this move. You don't like this style or whatever. But maybe if you did learn it, it would be great. Maybe you'd be a world champion or you would be great in a street fight or self-defense or whatever. But under this circumstance, you just don't care for it. Or maybe it's just, you're immature. Or at this moment, because a certain style is super popular, like maybe it's a BJJ, and you're just like, nah, I don't like mainstream stuff. So everyone loves it, and I just don't want to be part of that bandwagon. So I don't like BJJ. So maybe that's you. You closed yourself off to it. You deliberately decided to do that because immature or you're closed-minded or whatever. And that's fine. That's your prerogative. So if you decide to do that with certain styles or certain techniques or whatever, then, that's fine. Just don't go around saying that, BJJ sucks or this technique doesn't work, or don't go around being disrespectful like that. Just say, it's not for me. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not really into that, And I think that's what Bruce Lee meant. It's your preference. That's it. This is art. So, you want to do watercolor instead of oil painting? Hey, that's your preference, But don't say that watercolor is better than oil painting, And you want to pursue watercolor instead of oil painting, and you want to master watercolor. Why not? So I think that's what Bruce Lee meant. And so you get certain techniques, let's say, you really like them, you want to work on them, so you do. You get better and better and better at them. That's great. And there's certain stuff that, it's not your thing. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of material out there. So, that's just my opinion. And I think this way you could still do what you want, but still be respectful towards what's out there. And say, hey, I'm just kind of doing my own thing. So, I'm not putting down other styles, but, I just want to be a cool cat kind of thing, So, because, Bruce Lee, I get the impression that he's a very hip guy, even though he took his martial arts training very seriously. So, but yeah, if not, he wouldn't have been able to train with all those famous, world famous top martial artists. He wouldn't have been able to get along with them. He wouldn't have been able to, you know, have connections with them. And he understood that. He understood the importance of that. So, but anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and take care, folks.